seminar in the last 6 years, and this year's topic is on e-business and online marketing. And I will give you some of the details of the seminar, but at this time I would like to invite our Provost and Vice President, Dr. Flavius Killebrew, and he will welcome you from West Texas A&M.
Thank you, Dr. Anwar. I see a lot of familiar faces out there, and I've had the chance to talk to a few of you. I want to welcome all of you to the campus and thank the sponsors of our seminar today. And these seminars that Dr. Anwar puts on are usually very timely. And I looked at the topic today, and obviously there can't be much more timely topic than this one. And I know that you're gonna have a wonderful workshop, so I won't keep you from that. Just to say thank you for being here, and hope you enjoy it. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Killebrew. Few housekeeping details after that we start. We will have 4 sessions. The first session, I will take care of it. I'm wearing 2 hats today. I'm also the director of this seminar as well as the speaker for the first session. I will talk about the basic theories, trends, and changing applications of e-commerce. The second session is Mr. Mark Solacey. He's the Chief Information Officer and Vice President of Corporate Systems in Amarillo. He's here, sitting over there. He will talk about the practitioner's perspectives. Then we have a luncheon meeting. After my session, we have a break upstairs, so coffee and refreshments are available. After the second session, we will go to the JPK Legend Rooms, and we have our luncheon meeting. Dr. Long, president of our university, will be our keynote speaker. And then for our panel discussion in afternoon 1:15 to 3 p.m., I selected some extra time for that, and we have 4 speakers. Mr. Richard Burke is coming from San Antonio. He's already here. He called me yesterday. He's the president of a small company called Network Intelligence, and now they have changed their name to NII. He's going to talk about the telecommunication and internet. The second speaker is, and you already, I think most of you know him. His name is Mr. Lloyd Krokenberg. He's the gentleman who started LEK, and now he has started another internet company. So he's our speaker. He will talk about the software issues, internet-related issues, which are concerned. We are all concerned with those if you are a small businessman or mid-sized company. The third speaker is Kent Thornton. He used to be at Arnett. He was number 2 man over there. Now he has started his own company, Portiva Corporation. And they do some exporting, and he will let you know all the details of his company. He will talk about some of the finance issues, some of the business issues, some of the problems internet companies face in these days when you make a transition from manufacturing to the internet. And the fourth speaker is from Dallas. He's a marketing consultant of NEC of America. They have a NEC Business Network Solutions, and it's the 3rd largest electronics company in this country. And so we have these 4 speakers, and then the last session is Mitchell Winnick. Dr. Winnick is coming from Texas Tech Law School. He's the assistant dean over there. In fact, he's located in Dallas, and he manages their Dallas office. But he's going to talk about internet-related legal issues, copyright and trademark and intellectual property. Since we don't have that kind of expertise in this university. So I made sure that we do have somebody covering that area. And then Chris Stewart is a local attorney, and he will talk about the same issues. So we should be done by 4:45. And as I said before, after every session we have a break. So feel free to go upstairs, and during the luncheon we will take you to the luncheon room. And so this is the program we have, and I hope you enjoy this session, and we have made sure that this session and this whole program is timely and relevant to your area. Feel free to ask any questions. We have two helpers here. They are my students. Hai Win is right on the left-hand side. He's close to the door. And then Kylie Pryor is our MBA student. He's graduating this year. And he's also taking care of our video camera. Okay. Most of you do not need any introduction about the internet related areas. If you look at the last 5 years, internet is one of the hottest topics in this world. I was just visiting with Dr. Kilabru. I just came back from Pakistan, and every time I go to Pakistan or some other countries, I make sure that we share our knowledge. So I gave about 5 different faculty development talks in Pakistan, and I assume, just like 2-3 years ago, that there is still a data gap, knowledge gap, but you will be amazed. People in Pakistan and in other countries, they have the same knowledge about the internet, about all the companies. So I did not find any problem. In fact, in some areas, they are ahead of us. I'm talking about the mobile or wireless technology. Because if you know, there is a company out of Japan, it's called Docomo. And if you have visited Japan, it's one of the largest market capitalization. And that company is a wireless, and they call it M-Commerce. And Docomo, if you have Docomo stock, I think you should be pretty happy. But overall, the whole purpose of this internet revolution and the boom, one example which I share with my students all the time, and I'll show you this magazine. These are some of the giants in the internet industry. This gentleman is CEO of Yahoo, and this one is a company by the name of Intomi. They are also very good in the software. Yahoo is using their software. Right in the middle is a gentleman by the name of Masayoshi Son. And if you remember a company by the name of SoftBank, it's not really a bank. It's an internet company. They started selling software, distributing, and now they have invested in all the undervalued companies in the last 15 years. I will say 10 years. So they own 60 to 70% of Yahoo Japan. They own about 25 to 30% of Yahoo, which is in the US. They own about 30% of E-Trade. And then they also own Ziff Davis and PC Magazine. Some of the properties, I think they have unloaded it. But this gentleman, his total investments were, over the last 10 years, about $3 billion, and he's sitting at about $25 billion. So basically, what we teach in the textbooks, I've been teaching for the last 15 years, we haven't seen something like this. So when we go back to the classroom and we share this knowledge with our students and we go through the chapters, some of the concepts do not really work, because the concept is that you have to first make money, show profit, and then the stock will go up. And here, people haven't made any money, and they are already sitting on market cap value, which is sometimes $30-40 billion. And one company, most of you know, and it's a little question mark. This is July 10th, and it's called Amazon.com. And the way they have grown, we all know that it's unbelievable. But they do have some problems, and we will discuss those problems. So basically, if you look at the boom we had in the last 10 years, if you had bought few shares of Oracle, Cisco, Microsoft, and some of the other companies, Dell, of course, I don't think you need to be sitting in this room spending one day. You should be sitting somewhere else, because you ought to be sitting on $5 billion. So this is what we haven't seen in the textbooks, and this is what it does not really apply. So what's going on in this world? And that's, I will say, mind-boggling. So basically, I'll show you a few more details. I don't know how many people know this gentleman. Now, he's just a 21-year-old. He went to Northeastern University, Boston, and he dropped out after one semester because he created a software called Napster. When they hired somebody, they had venture capital, so it's all history, and they have some problems going on. But just 21-year-old kid can change the whole world. 21 million members worldwide, or consumers. And then I was talking to my Taiwanese student, we have a group visiting here in these days, and I asked them, do you use that Napster? And I think at least 6 to 7 people, they raised their hand, yes, we know Napster. Now, you don't make it to Fortune magazine, you have to be somebody very big. June 26, 2000. Either you have to be very big or you have to do something very stupid. Of course, they will put you on on these kind of magazines. But this is Sean Fanning, the same Sean who's sitting here in this magazine, right in between these two people. So these are the giants, Yahoo, and that's this person is CEO and chairman of eBay. And the right in between, look at this innocent fate. And that's what we have in the internet area. And so basically, and then here, Masayoshi Son, still going very strong. I did a case study on him last year, and we had a wonderful discussion in Dallas. And Masayoshi Son, if you look at his history, at the age of 16, came to the United States, went to UC Berkeley, got his undergraduate degree in economics, went back, started a company called SoftBank in the first year, had only maybe a sale like few $100,000, and he started with 5 part-time employees. And now you can imagine he's sitting at least $25 billion. Of course, he has lots of problems, but it's one of the fastest companies in the world. You know, I was reading Wall Street a couple of months ago. They unloaded some of their shares, and they sold like 1% of their Yahoo shares and raised about $200 million, 1 to 2%. So this is where our textbooks, to me, are wrong. But if they are wrong, then why do we teach business? So the whole concept of the internet. I would also like to tell you one thing, and that is we have made a pretty big handbook. And in that handbook, I have included all the URLs, all kinds of information you get. I would strongly recommend you to go to the US Department of Commerce page, and they have a website, and you can download this whole book. It's free. You don't need to buy it. It's about 200-300 page book, and US Department of Commerce did a study on the emerging digital economy, and it got published in 1999. But everything is available in that handbook, and if you look at some of the new books coming out in the internet area, I counted the books I have included in your handbook. There are 230 or about 200 new books out, 1999 and 2000. And where did I get the list? Well, 10 years ago, I used to go to my library, and we used to spend like $50, $100 for data banks. This time, I did not have to go anywhere. I just went to Amazon.com. Just imagine how much money I saved and how much time I saved. And maybe within few hours, I had a whole list of all the books, because they have a data so beautifully laid out that if you go to a place, they will also tell you, if you bought this, then people also bought this. And then this is a chain reaction. And you can do your whole research. So that's why every time, if there is any need, if I have any need, I do not go to the library. I just go to Amazon.com. I guarantee you, you can find any book in the world. Even if it's not published there, and they will tell you it's coming out. So this is where the whole industry and the power is changing. Now, when we started teaching 15 years ago, we had the power behind this podium. And people used to sit here, students, and we could tell that they did not have the power. In these days, that power structure has changed. I can look into somebody's eyes, students, and I can tell you that they know what we teach. And so basically, knowledge gap, and when you have knowledge, you stand tall, you are more confident. So this is where I believe internet is going to be a pretty big revolution. Now just imagine, wait for 10 more years. And people who are going to be coming to our university, all the kids who are in junior high or after 5 years, they know more than us. In fact, sometimes I'm kind of scared because they stop me in my classes and they tell me that, Mr. Anwar, you are wrong. And sometimes I invite them to my office and I ask them, can you please fix this? And just few strokes and it's done. And sometimes it takes me hours. So basically, look at the gap. And I was sharing this information with my wife the other day. And the amazing thing is I have one student and Lloyd was telling me that the person who designed his software is only 16 years old. And he will share this information with you. And basically, the whole power structure. So this is what we call internet economy. Let me go to my section. There are different terms we use in these days. And every day you watch TV or read newspaper, they have things like the new economy, digital economy, e-business, m-commerce, e-commerce, w-commerce. M-commerce stands for mobile commerce, W stands for wireless commerce, interconnected world, network economy, connected economy, virtual economy, knowledge-based economy, B-Web and e-house. Now, it's a total confusion. And the reason is, and we all know that, anytime when you develop any kind of theory, you will have lots of problems. Because when you develop theory, you have to base your theory on the basis of logic. And there are many philosophical differences, schools of thought. People fight. And we still have problems in our disciplines where somebody designed a theory and many professors do not agree with that gentleman. So this is where internet is. We do not have a solid foundation in terms of theory. So I have a feeling that it's going to take some time. What's the reason? Many people, they just mix it and sometimes we do not know what's going on. Many people confuse e-commerce with e-business, e-business with value chain, all these. So basically, these are the new terms you will see in the media. And here I'm going to read, there's a book, Bill Gates, with another gentleman, he wrote a book, and it's in your handbook. And he said that business is going to change more in the next 10 years than it has in the last 50 years. I think I will say it's going to change more in the next 5 years. 10 years are a long time. In fact, I had a discussion yesterday. Lloyd gave a talk in my class here to all the international marketing people. This whole room was full. And he said, I said, what do you think, 5 years? He said, no. How about 1 to 2 years? I don't know, maybe we are kind of too ambitious, but the pace of change is so fast and this is kind of mind-boggling. And he said the successful companies of the decade will be the ones that use digital tools to reinvent the way they work. A digital nervous system will let you do business at the speed of thought, the key to success in the 21st century. Now, I do have some other quotes. There's a gentleman who teaches at Harvard University, very smart guy. His name is Jeffrey Sachs, and he's one of the top figures in academia. He said that today's world is divided not by ideology but by technology. Now, when we went to school 26 years ago when I did my master's, and at that time the world was divided on the basis of ideology. You had Soviet Union, you had US under them, you had big umbrella of allies fighting, and all Cold War going on. And basically, if you read his article, this is what he talks about, that ideology is not really the issue. The issue is who got the best technology. And that's where if you look at G8 countries, they met in Japan last month, and they were talking about over there a thing called digital divide. So all these things are amazing. Now, I do have some other quotes from other people, from Jerry Yang, from others, and it's all in your handbook. According to Forrester Research, B2B e-commerce will reach $2.5 trillion. Now, that's where the confusion is, because if you look at some of the other consulting companies, like Yankee, like IBC, like Forrester, and there are so many others, Ziff Davis, all these, there are 7 to 8 top ones. Now, somebody will go up to 3 trillion, somebody will say 2 trillion, somebody is saying 1 trillion. So I will say that we have to wait for another 5 years because the area is still being grown. It's still not established, and we have a very hard time to quantify which way the place is going. Of course, United States is still the main country in the world doing all these internet-related activities. But as of 2000, and I looked at this data, this is accurate, there are more than 600 B2B exchanges. Now, I don't know if it's in this country or worldwide, but mostly it applies to these countries. And you have all the exchanges, I do have information. Now, what are these exchanges? 5, 6 companies get together and make an online exchange, so basically suppliers. And B2B is basically business to business. Now, the question is, how did they raise all the money? Because Amazon and AOL and all these companies, eBay and eTrade, and they raise money by issuing convertible bonds. And this data is also available in your handbook. But here, very briefly, AOL raised $2.6 billion some years ago, and by issuing convertible bonds, and Amazon also did the same, 1.9 billion, and eTrade, they raised 500 million. So basically, you have to be creative. And this kind of instruments were available, but they were not used at a mass scale. And that's where the question is, if the stock goes down, what's going to happen to people who have invested? Because convertible bonds, as you know the concept, it's kind of built at scale. And then in June 2000, IBM announced spending $1 billion in the areas of its debt-related activities. In June 2000, Microsoft changed its main corporate strategy, and Microsoft has been kind of late, but they finally took a big decision. If you know, they also changed their mission. There are few lines in the mission they have changed. So basically they said that they are now a web-based company, and all these things they decided Microsoft Net, which will encompass Windows Net, Office Net, MSN Net, vCentral, all these things. So what this means to you? Worldwide, and especially in this country, small businesses, mid-sized companies, and big businesses. Well, a lot of question mark. Lucrative business of building internet marketplaces. Wonderful. Booming markets, not US but overseas. Because I can go to anybody's data bank if I have the information, and I can save time, excitement, new products, additional opportunities. You know, the culture of the Silicon Valley, San Francisco, I don't know if you have been to that place, or if you visited Austin and some of the Silicon Valley, it's a totally different culture because they do not have the mindset what we have. You know, you can also see when you have CIS people, masters or PhDs, sometimes we have a problem. We don't have the same wavelength. Because I teach marketing and international business, and we are all self-taught in many of the things. Of course, you are also self-taught, but the mindset. So the mindset is, I can do anything culture of the internet world. And we have seen it. There are so many examples we have in the last, especially 3 years. I can do anything culture of the internet world. New silicon entrepreneurs, somewhat unstructured, haphazard. You may have encountered it in your company. People you hire who are high-tech people, who are the data processing or the internet people, sometimes they do not get along. Because sometimes they make fun. Like, I have a student, pretty young, and one day I went to the computer center and I was stuck in one of the things, so I asked him a few questions and he started laughing at me. So that kind of a little embarrassment. So we have the same gap in many companies, and I think you must have encountered it in some. It's unstructured, it's haphazard. The basic management theory, what we teach, sometimes doesn't apply. Chain of command and control issues, big problem in many companies. And then we have a lot of griping around water coolers, coffee shops. These are younger guys, or sometimes these are older guys. And because they do not communicate, and so I think this thing is not going to disappear, but if you look at I can do anything culture of the internet world, some people have been extremely successful. But then not everybody became part of that small group of people. Because now, you know, what we say is that internet, you have to be extremely niche-oriented. Not every company is going to make it in the market. Okay, theory of internet e-business systems, very basic IT environment, communication system, distribution system, value creation, diffusion of innovation, shorter life cycles, role of information, political and legal issues, societal issues. This is happening very fast. Now, components of e-business, some of you may not agree sitting in this room, but because as I said before, the theory is being built, established, still nurtured, so it's going to take at least 5-6 years to actually define what internet or what e-business or what e-commerce is. But I relied on the definition which is provided by Booz Allen and Hamilton. And a couple of years ago, last year, last March, I interviewed their vice chairman. And we published, I'm also a book review editor of the journal Thunderbird Idea Review, which is published by John Wiley. So he mentioned Cyrus Freetime, and I asked him the same question about e-business and e-commerce. And last year he said that, but it's a total confusion. We have to wait at least another 5-6 years. Because some companies, they will use the terms according to their needs. Whatever fits well with you, you will start using the definition. But I relied on theirs, but I do have some other definitions in your handbook. So they say that it's basically supply chain management, which has been going on for many years, sourcing, outsourcing, knowledge management, which is also part of intellectual capital, alliances and partnerships, and then they say that e-commerce is part of e-business. Now then, what is e-business? Because mostly we use the term e-business. Electronic data interchange, which has been going on for many years. Now the thing is, in these days it's more efficient because the way technology is changing, so you have better sources and better connections with the EDI. Business to business, that's one of the fastest, or I would say the fastest area in the e-commerce area. And then business to consumer, consumer to consumer, business to government, they say that is going to be another big giant leap forward in the e-commerce area if it happens after 10 years. And then we have consumer to consumers and who knows, person to consumer, person to, so there are so many definitions you can read in the newspapers, and so there is really no set criteria. Now let's look at B2B markets and e-hubs, electronic hubs. Net marketplace, exchanges are one of the fastest growing areas, and Mr. Solisi, I think, is going to talk about that. Lead generation, catalog aggregation, workflow places, auctions, reverse auctions, MRO. Now, I was reading in a couple of research, MRO is also growing very fast. Maintenance, repair, and supply. Because you have two types of B2B markets, or e-hubs. One is manufacturing and one is supply oriented. Raw materials, all these, and one becomes, supplies on a continuous basis. Components of B-webs and digital networks, and there are few references. I took this format from a new book out by one of the authors. I think he also wrote a book last year, Digital Networks. This year he wrote a book, Digital Capital, and he provided this definition. It's published by the Harvard Business School. It's in your handbook. And basically, he's relying on IT infrastructure, multi-enterprise participants. You have customers, you have contact providers, you have content providers, commerce service providers, infrastructure providers, co-optation. Now, that's where when I went for my spell check, the computer did not understand co-optation. Co-optation is basically competition as well as cooperation. In fact, a couple of years ago, somebody wrote a book on this. And co-optation is, in some areas, and especially internet areas, you are competing as well as you are also cooperating with each other. And then you have a context range, and then you have a knowledge exchange. Now, let me very briefly go through these because some of these terms may be new to you. IT infrastructure is self-explanatory, business communication and transactions. Customers are not only part of your transactions, but they also contribute according to this digital network. And then we have a context providers. This is a kind of an interface between customers and events. And then you have a content providers, provide goods and services as well as information. And then you have a commerce service providers. They enable the flow of information. So behind the screen, you can imagine so many people are working. It's not only a PC and you are getting all the information. And then infrastructure, which is everything. It's logistics and all the physical activities you do. And then cooperation, they cooperate and compete. Customer centricity, it's a relationship and they respond, different parties. Context range, manages customers, and then we have knowledge exchange, data, information. So basically, as I said before, whatever definition or whatever criteria you are going to use, you will ultimately come back to the same point, and that is two people are connected to each other. And textbooks are using these definitions. There are 2-3 different schools of thought. MIT people are using a different definition. Harvard, they don't want to use that. Wharton, they don't want to use that. UT Austin, they don't want. So if you look at the research done by all these professors, basically it's all in its infancy. So you will still have some problems, but I will give another 5-6 years. When the theory is established, then you have some kind of foundation. Okay. Types of B-webs and digital networks. I took the same definition from this book, and this has been kind of used by other authors also. And I have some of the definitions here and as well as examples. Agora. Agora used to be in ancient Greece. They used to have, people's place, and people used to come, buyers and sellers, and it was kind of a place, meeting place. Now they use this term because assembly of people. And if you look at internet, all exchanges, it's basically a simple assembly of people. NASDAQ is a part of that, Yahoo is a part of that, metal site. Aggregation is basically, these are retailers and wholesalers. So you have Amazon.com, Camtag, Webvan, E-Trade. I don't know if you know about Webvan. Some of you may have gone to its site. They have 5 to 6 grocery stores in this country. All big cities, of course. San Francisco, New York. I don't know if they are in LA or Dallas, but so what they do is they have this 2 types of delivery, 2-hour delivery guarantee, and then they also provide you, and you don't have to leave your home. They will guarantee delivery and they will provide you all your grocery, and it's kind of a unique store. Now, Webvan, in these days, they have some problems, and lately they have acquired a company for $1 billion, another competitor. So Webvan is a very, very unique, extremely unique. It's an internet-based company and selling groceries. Value chain, Cisco Systems, Dell, GM, Alliances, AOL, MP3, and then we have a distributed networks, Enron, UPS, and AT&T. Now, I would like to mention one company since I have monitored this company for many years because I believe it's a very, very unique company. Everybody knows about Enron out of Houston. Now, if you look at the strategy of Enron in the last 15 years, they have been coming out of their utility and gas industry, and now they are one of the largest broadband companies. And the way they have taken a 180-degree change in their corporate focus is because the market is changing so fast. So if you look at their exchange in Houston, I haven't visited their exchange, but they say that they have like $1 billion worth of transactions every day, and it's all on the internet. And somebody visited their exchange, and they said it was pretty good. But Enron is one of those companies, manufacturing companies, trying to make a transition towards the internet, and I believe they are the first movers, or one of the first movers, and they will be very successful. Okay, online business and marketing models now. Another confusion, because a few months ago I did a little paper and I was trying to investigate what kind of online marketing models, and again, you have lots of people having their own models. If you look at 3 textbooks, and they are all different. So basically, they are just trying to do whatever is compatible with their theory. So there is a model created by Mr. R. Rapa. I do have its website, and in your spare time, when you go to that, I think they have discussed different kinds of issues: brokerage model, advertising model, intermediary model, merchant model, affiliate model, community, subscription, utility. And then Mr. Geoffrin, he thinks that it's a storefront model, image building model, customer service, access, commission, user database, all these. The third model is discussed by Turbin, Lee, King, and Chung, direct versus indirect marketing, cyber marketing versus partial marketing, e-distributors, e-brokers, e-store versus e-mall, proactive versus reactive, cyber marketing, global, regional, local, all these. And the last, then we have a model by Hansen, revenue-based model. Hansen wrote a book on online marketing, and it's available through Amazon.com. I think I've seen some of my colleagues in other universities, they are using it. It's one of the first books in the internet area, by the way. Content sponsorship, retail alliances, banner advertising, prospect fees, sales, all these. And then I was looking at all these models. I did not find any online model which was useful or meant for non-profit organizations. So basically, that is another maybe a possible future paper, but my belief is that online, if you are a non-profit organization, I think these two concepts and two models can be applied. Image building model and leadership model, of course, you have to quantify it, you have to scientifically check it. But this is just under construction in the pipeline. So these are the models used by different people. Now, yes, sir.
I would add communication model.
Communication? Okay. To non-profit?
Right.
Okay, so communication model? That's good. Because if you look at the non-profit marketing, or not-for-profit marketing, the strategies we use and teach, they are totally different, so I agree with you. Okay, let's move to the next area. Online marketing and branding issues. And I am very much interested in that because the way things are changing, and as we said before, it's still being established. You have to look at types of products you sell online. So you can have undifferentiated products like commodities, and that's where many people, they buy and sell through exchanges or between two people. So the strategies you are going to use for this product is totally different what you have from quasi-commodity products, high-quality durable brands, or perishable brands. So what that brand is doing under perishable brands, online grocery chain, it may not be used by somebody selling watches or clothing or Gap or whatever online. So these are all totally different. Now, customer service and problems faced by inexperienced.com online marketers, that's one of the major issues we are addressing in these days. And when we teach classes or when we watch or when we read newspapers or anything, this is one of the worst nightmares, online marketing. I'll give you a few examples. 4 months ago or 3 months ago, FTC, they fined about 8 to 10 big-time retailers. Now, these big-time retailers, Toys R Us, and I don't think Amazon was part of that, but there are CD Now and all those. So what did they do? They were fined heavily, like $1 million to $2 million for a company, or at least $500,000. The thing was, last Christmas, they took all the orders, and then the system did not work, and they did not deliver on time. And many people got very mad, and so many people complained. So this is a major nightmare. In fact, Amazon.com in the last 2 years, and some of you will agree with that, in the last 2 years got so nervous and so concerned that some people say that they have some of the best infrastructure now. But the thing is, it's not being used. And then in some places they say that they may have to give it to somebody because they don't have that kind of demand. So those people fined by the FTC because of their inexperience. And delivery was not possible, like many people ordered toys and they could not get it on time. Yes?
Yeah, Toys R Us is one of the companies involved in that. They were fined.
They were fined.
And the big problem is they never notified anybody that they wouldn't receive it.
Yes, Mark?
Actually, this morning there was an announcement on NPR, which is a joint venture between Toys R Us and Amazon.com to leverage the distribution channels of Amazon with the product of Toys R Us, because they did recognize some of the problems they've had with the distribution channels last year at Christmas. And they weren't alone, of course. And even a more insidious problem was not that you didn't get your order, but God help you if you tried to return something.
good points. So basically, this is what, and issues of personalized service, customer relations, web alliances, and cooperative activities. Now, most of the slides you will see, I have left this page because if you sit in the back rows, there is some problem, you can't see this section. So that's why. When they built this room, I think they did not pay attention to this part. Online marketing and branding issues, because if you are sitting over there, you can't see half of it. So, issues of brand equity and intangible, this is, and I've done some work in brand equity and intangible items, and this is one of the nightmares. It's very difficult to deliver online, and that's where many marketers, they have a problem. Supply chain management issues in EDI and ERP, and I think Lloyd was telling me yesterday, he's going to talk about ERP, but very briefly, electronic data interchange and ERP. ERP is not really a new term. It's been going on for many, many years. Most of you know ERP, Enterprise Resource Planning. Some of the companies, world giants like SAP, PeopleSoft, and then JDSA, and all these, and of course Oracle stole lots of market shares in that lately. I did a study 2 years ago on SAP. It's a Germany's company, and it's called Europe's Microsoft, one of the largest or the largest software company. But they have severe problems with these days. Of course, their software will cost you at least a couple of million minimum, or it goes up to like many, many, many years to install, and sometimes they don't even know it's so complex. So that's not my area, but ERP, we look at it from a different angle. It's connecting the whole company, and if you have it, I think you can easily bring the cost down. SAP is losing money basically because they did not deal with the internet on time. So they did not become a web-based company. Now they are coming back, reorganizing their US operations and other worldwide operations. Okay, online marketing and branding issues, we are still discussing this. Issues of outsourcing is a nightmare for many marketers, because you cannot deliver in Alaska. You have to have somebody doing it for you. And that's where quality issue and delivery, and maybe take the example of flower shops. You have something want to be delivered in Tokyo. It's a great idea. You got the money, somebody sent you order, but then if you don't have the right, outsourcing strategy, it can backfire. How to create a great online customer experience, and this is where many online marketers, they have to have the right kind of strategy, because you are not really dealing with 100,000 people buying from you. Each and every person is unique. Each and every person, they have to have some kind of experience, and that's where some companies, they cannot convert this into their image. Web traffic problems in brand building, huge problem. Issues of demand forecasting, order management, and quality areas. And this is the last Christmas, many people, when they got all the orders, they did not know how to deal because they had the system, but in some areas, outsourcing and quality, it did not work. Transaction cost, 4Ps, product price, place promotion, development of new markets, customer perceptions of traditional versus e-brands, issues of relationship and trust-based marketing, issues of online and global markets, and cultural issues and consumption patterns. The last part is important from online point of view because cultural issues and consumption patterns totally. Some people say we can go worldwide very simply because having an online strategy, I don't think it's going to work. If you have so much problem in this country, just imagine what's going to happen in some countries where they don't have the infrastructure in place. But according to, and I think Mark can address this area, according to some estimates, it's going to take maybe another 8 to 9 years even in this country to establish the infrastructure, because online marketing still is not available in many, many areas. Okay, future research areas, and that's where I'm very much interested. What are the things we need to really discuss and maybe scientifically check if you are talking about online? Price elasticity and online marketing issues. And I'm very much interested in validity and relevance of online business models. And you saw all the models which I have in my notebook. And many people are going in different directions. There is really no harmony. And as I said, it's normal. Because anytime you have a new theory, people do not agree. And you have to disagree, but as long as you scientifically check your theories, and it will take some time. E-business and non-profit organizations are also struggling to deliver their messages online, and some of the companies are very good. And you can raise money, you can have huge exposure, but online strategy, one of the main problems is some companies have hard time raising cash and money. Role of positioning strategies, issues of competition and distance learning and higher education. We are also part of it. West Texas A&M and other universities. I did a couple of seminars last year. I also served on the Texas Higher Ed Committee from Austin. And 2 years ago, our committee said that, everybody is going to online. Take the example of Phoenix University. They have more than 100,000 students now. Phoenix University, I don't know if it's out of Phoenix, but they have branches. In fact, they have overseas students. And so suddenly, Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board, they said, we need to have a strategy. Because they had already done it in California. They had a California Virtual University, and then Minnesota did it. And so everybody. So you'll be amazed, and I think Dr. Long will bring you some literature, and he will talk about this area. But we were the first mover in the A&M system. So A&M College Station did not capitalize on this, and we take, I don't know how many, more than 100 courses we offer online, and some of our students are sitting in other places. Now, we can just talk about all the great things, but there are some problems. The major problems, what we see as an academic, issues of delivery and issues of quality. And you have to struggle, you have to address these, because in many universities, they are dealing with this issue, but distance learning is not really something new. You go to any university, I guarantee you, in fact, in your literature, I have added all the URLs, websites. You'll be amazed how many universities are offering courses online. And they say that in the health sciences, it's working very well. In the health sciences, in some areas it's difficult. My wife, who's also a professor here, she's sitting over there, she teaches music. And we always argue that you cannot teach music online. I mean, she teaches percussion, and how can you teach percussion somebody? So, of course, theory-wise, no problem, but when you have some areas, I think you will have some difficulty. But many universities, some of the people who are the leaders in this area, Vanderbilt University, and then we have MIT. Texas Tech also started, Texas A&M started e-commerce program. I think they offer masters in e-commerce. And there are so many universities now. So this is a kind of becoming very popular item. Current and future issues of e-business. After that, I'm going to show you some of the transparencies, because I didn't have those on my PowerPoint. So we have a brick-and-mortar.com, growth and survival issues, and some of the data coming out lately, some people are saying that at least 50% of the .com companies will disappear, because they are burning cash too fast, and they are running out of money. And according to some estimates, lately, if you look at Amazon.com, which is the most visible, they have their stock swings, so up and down. And somebody said that Goldman Sachs analysts came and they said they are not going to make it for another 2 years. So they have some major problems in some companies. Burning cash very fast, running out of money. So, anytime when you have this kind of problem, somebody is a winner and somebody is a loser. In fact, if you read the latest data coming out of Europe, there are so many European .com for sale. And they are so beautifully priced that you can just create a huge synergy, that you can get those companies very cheap. Now, it's going to happen in the U.S. Is it going to happen in the U.S.? In some areas, they are saying yes, because some companies are ripe for, this takeoff. I mean, they cannot survive. So some big guys will come in. In fact, I won't be surprised after 2, 3, 4 years. Who knows? Somebody may come and they may acquire Amazon.com. Although people at Amazon, they are pretty tough and they want to keep their identity, but there are many companies for sale. So this is a major issue. E-exchange is one of the fastest growing areas. areas have some problems, but the problems may be in the antitrust area. If you read in the last few months, Justice Department, they have already raised few concerns about e-exchanges because when companies can make an exchange, you can create a few monopolies. That's one of the reasons. One of the companies lately they wanted to buy. Let's see, who wanted to buy who? There was a company and it was denied. Yes, MCI, not MCI, WorldCom. They wanted to buy Sprint, and the flag was raised, and so it did not really go. Okay. And then we have availability of knowledge capital and manpower issues. That's my favorite topic, and in the internet industry, huge area. Mitchell Winnick is going to talk about legal issues, intellectual property, trademarks, copyright, issues of IT infrastructure, and this is a problem because worldwide it's a major nightmare. Standards, compatibility, and all these issues. Customer service, quality, trust issue, major problem, trust. Many people still do not buy online because people do not trust each other. Conventional brands versus e-brands, availability of social capital. Now, this is not really a new theory, social capital. It's been there for about 10, 12 years, but people have started to discuss its theory in a more scientific way. Social capital is who you know. And this is what you do business in these days. If you do not know the right connection, then you don't have the social capital. And many companies, they use their social capital because it's your asset. If you have the right person, well connected to some companies or infrastructure or people, I think your company is very well placed. Issues of m-commerce, mobile commerce, US versus Japan and Europe, and I gave you the example of Docomo. If you look at, let's see if I have this article or no. If you look at this, let's see, June 19, 2000, it's also available in your, I'm going to read one thing, and there was an information I had about a company called Docomo, and it's placed 4th or 5th in the market value. And this is a Japanese company. What's their competitive edge? M-commerce. It's a wireless company. Now, as we know, and it's being discussed in the media, that we are behind like 8 to 9 months behind Europeans in the m-commerce, in the wireless technology. And then Europeans are behind Japanese, about 8 to 9 months. So basically, Japanese took the lead and they are the first mover in the m-commerce. And if you go to Japan, Docomo, you can download some of the websites. They have the 3rd generation iMode coming out, or it's already out. And it's a very interesting company. Docomo was basically, it was a spin-off from NTT, Nippon Telephone and Telegraph. And if you look at lately, Docomo wanted to buy a company in this country. I forgot the name, and I think FBI or Justice Department or somebody, they questioned, so it did not work. And then Deutsche Telekom came and they are trying to buy that company, but they have some concerns, security reasons. So m-commerce is the future name of the game, and I think more activity will be happening. And then we have a digital marketplace, international IT standards, digital divide between nations, which we already discussed. More and more people are concerned that digital divide is going to be a major nightmare. It has been discussed under G8 when all these G8 countries meet. It's also discussed under OECD, and major issues. Okay, so these were some of my topics, and a couple of years ago, we did a seminar on alliances and joint ventures, and Michael Bond was also our speaker a couple of years ago. And I have related the same material because if you look at the high-tech and internet-related companies, you really cannot go alone. You have to create alliances. You have to make joint ventures. And I'll show you in a minute some of the transparency. I'm not going to spend too much time. It's pretty self-explanatory because almost every company in this country, they have some kind of joint venture, alliance, cooperative activities. The problem is at least 50 to 55% of the alliances, they never work, but still it's a good strategy. What is it? 2 or more profit, non-profit, they combine, they share resources, they keep their corporate identities. It's a marriage of convenience and based on the concept which is called if you can't beat your competitors, then you need to join them. And very simple, and it's very simple for me to say, but when you actually get down to business and negotiate and make contracts, it's very difficult. And compatibility issues, structure, corporate culture, all these things are part of these types and forms. There are different types and forms. Alliances, joint ventures, technology, research and development, consortium, formation, cross-licensing, cross-manufacturing, marketing, distribution, supplier, linkages, joint bidding, counter trade, buyback, agreements, licensing. And this is where all the exchanges, internet exchanges and cooperative activity taking place, it can come under alliances. Spot contracts, minority investments, and finally, if everything works well, then people merge. AOL merged with CNN, Time Warner, and then we have lately there are few mergers taking place, so that's the last thing. Causes and driving forces, I want to show you my transparency, so I'm going to skip these few slides because these are really simple. Potential benefits, ability to deal with the changing high-tech markets, sharing of intellectual capital, knowledge. Common problems, and I want to discuss very briefly this. That's where most of the systems break down. Issue of autonomy, corporate cultures, management styles, how to get along. Just imagine, Steve Case, AOL, and Ted Turner. Just put them in one room, and the chances are Mr. Ted Turner will win because Steve Case will lose. Steve Case is the chairman and CEO of AOL America Online. But again, they have merged because they know that one is a content provider, other one is internet-based, ISP, and basically they have to merge their resources. Otherwise, CNN and Time Warner, they have a hard time surviving. On the other hand, AOL was also getting to a point where the market is saturated, so that's the only way to expand. You help me, I help you. We have to wait and see because I think Justice Department is going to, give the green signal by December. It's still not approved, but it was one of the largest mergers we have. Obstacles, poor judgment is one of the major reasons when people get on the bandwagon and try to do something. And I have this big trust here in capital letters, big font, big trust, major nightmare. And there are few titles I would like to recommend to you. They are in your handbook. There are a couple of books out lately in the last 4 years and really nice titles. And discussing trust, it's just like human beings. People break down, people split, and because of one thing called power and control, and once you have this problem, people do not get along. The same thing applies to companies. Trust is very difficult, one of the most difficult areas, I will say the difficult area to deal with when you have alliances and when you have partnerships. Okay, issues to be investigated before creating essays and joint ventures. You have to measure it, quantify it, understand it, controllable, diagnosable, replicable, valuable, trainable, predictable, sustainable, potential long-term gains. All these are pretty simple. And collaborative mode, issues of tacit knowledge, that's an area which is becoming extremely popular in the internet and high-tech industry. Tacit knowledge is you cannot see it. If you have an employee who's with you and he has wonderful social capital, he's well connected, he's also one of your productive persons, when he leaves, you lost your knowledge. Actually, you can't see it, you can't touch it, but he left. So, in these days, it's your asset. And there are some studies coming out and they have scientifically checked these areas. Tacit knowledge is one of the most important. If you have 10, 15 people, top people leaving Microsoft, we guarantee you Microsoft's value will drop significantly because of the tacit knowledge. And this is a major nightmare for many companies. Last month, president of AOL, he left and he joined the company or he started another company and look what happened on that day. not AOL, I'm sorry, Amazon.com. That went live and within 1 week, about the shares went down like $8 to $9. So basically, those people are your assets. Issues of economy, risks, opportunities, transformation, all these things.